Second Amendment activists contend that if more of us were walking around armed, the world would be a safer place. Among them is Brevard County, Florida Sheriff Wayne Ivey. Let's listen.
Terrorists and active shooters know that our citizens have been coached to run and hide and then patiently await help. In fact, they count on it so they can strategically target as many citizens as possible. What they don't count on is being attacked themselves, having to become defensive to save their own lives. No matter who you are or what your position is on guns, there is no denying the fact that the only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun or a knife is an armed and well-prepared citizen or law enforcement officer.
Now, in another carry state, Texas, now retired Dallas Chief David Brown sounded real wary after that lone shooter killed 5 of his officers and wounded 11 others. Here's the chief.
It's increasingly challenging when people have AR-15 slung over and shootings occur in a crowd and they begin running, and we don't know if they're the shooter or not, or they begin. It's been the presumption that a good guy with a gun is the best way to resolve some of these things. Well, we don't know who the good guy is versus who the bad guy is if everybody starts shooting.
Ronald, you're already shaking your head. I cringe when I hear that if there were more guns in that movie theater in Aurora, Colorado, that audience would have been safer. Am I wrong thinking that people firing in all directions in the dark with a smoke bomb going off would have made things much worse?
Right. I cringe too, because I think Chief Brown raises a good point. When you're a police officer and you're responding to the scene of shots fired, and you have a uniform on and your colleagues are uniformed too, and then there's some citizen there standing there with a gun and pulling out his gun and then using it, as a police officer, I'm going to shoot him. That's who I'm going to shoot, because he has a gun, because he's not wearing a sign or a uniform that say, I'm a good guy with a gun that can legally carry a gun. There's something wrong with that. I know working in police work and somewhat in prevention and other things, that whole idea of people carrying guns and that they can protect themselves, I believe that, again, we're talking about a false sense of security that may exist in some situations if you have the drop on the individual. But just standing out in the middle of the street, can you imagine what would have happened in the park if some citizen in New York would have been able to carry a gun and use it, would have been standing there firing at the truck while it would have been coming? When the police got there, they would have shot at everybody who had a weapon.
Right.
The truck driver, the man with the gun, but then too, you know, bullets ricochet off for objects, and then we don't know where they're going, sometimes end up wounding and killing other innocent people who wouldn't have been in danger as a result of the truck going through the running path. But the fact of the matter is, I don't think that that's an absolute. Again, we're talking about odds and whatnot, and right, based on the rules and the laws that we have in this country now, what the sheriff is talking about, I think, may create even more danger.
So you come down on Chief Brown's side.
Oh, absolutely.
Huh? Yeah.
Absolutely. 23 years, almost 24 years of being a police officer makes me believe that Chief Brown has an excellent point. And I've seen that, I've seen the results of those kind of things.
Let's think about the most innocent victims. From Columbine to Connecticut, these school shootings have horrified us. What are schools telling kiddos to do now, if?
Well, what they call the shelter in place. A lot of times what's happening is that the teachers, the students, the parents have been trained and educated in this whole idea that when a situation happens, you huddle in your classroom, you shelter in place, they lock down the school, they call the police, they respond. The whole idea of teachers having guns and guns in the classroom or the school building, again, that's something that maybe the sheriff might agree with, but the real police, I just don't believe that they would condone those types of things. I know in the state of Virginia, we have heard ideas about having weapons on campus. Again, that's a bad idea, because students with guns aren't wearing shirts that say, I'm a good guy with a gun. They're not saying that. That's not available. So when the police get there, they've been trained to shoot people that have a weapon. And when you turn, then, you know, your life is on the line right then and there. So I'm not, again, I'm not someone who believes that having a gun makes you safe. I think having a gun brings danger to you in a dangerous situation. And so we really need to let the police officers who are trained expertly to do the kind of work that they're doing, we need to let them do their job.